Thank you very much. I'll be keeping an eye in the eyes of every one of you. So when you talk, I'll be looking at you a bit more.
And if they see?
They will not see me. It's all about you, isn't it? It's not about me. So if you made the effort, if you came in here, if you asked for the topic, you must have wanted to know, either because you are serving, because you know someone suffering, or personally you question, have I been traumatized or not? So that's why I would like it to be interactive, ask a question directly or on the QR code. If you want to bring in stories of someone you know, it would be a good idea. So my talk, just to prepare you, will seem like it's a repetition of what you heard in the morning. And I guess God allows that because it's not easy topic and you probably drifted a bit during it, probably were thinking of something, and it probably is very difficult to keep it all in one mind. People spend years studying what it is about. So you will find some repetition, but how we can make it different is your interaction. So I am a psychiatrist, which means a doctor who works with illness rather than the average kind of spectrum of suffering. So people would come to me when they are ill, but of course I have an idea about how it built up to that. I'm also a mother of two young adults around your age. So I saw them growing, exposed to some of what you exposed, question themselves of being traumatized or not. I did question myself sometimes, and I serve in Sunday school, so I see people growing up and going through the same difficulty. So with the prayers of the team, wanting to know, I hope God give us something to go home with. So my part is breaking the cycle, but yet I'll have to go through some of the things. So if you remember what Marianne said, what do you remember what is trauma? I know you had a nice lunch.
It's a very stressful event that you had. It has many types as well.
Yeah.
It can be one-off or like lifetime stress.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other explanation?
Inability to cope.
Inability when we are traumatized. Yeah, that's how it feels. Any more remembrance of how it was described?
It's how you respond to an event.
How to respond to the event?
It was literally the same thing
The
that he
same
said,
thing.
yeah, like it's how it affects you rather than the event in itself.
Absolutely, thank you. So we read it together again, which is some of what you said. So it is a response. So the trauma isn't the event, which you said it is the response to a deeply disturbing, and again what disturbed me will be different than what disturbed somebody else, or distressing event, or set of circumstances that overwhelms an individual ability to cope, like you explained. So when I'm shaken, how to cope. And it causes feeling of helplessness, and I think this is a bit of it. It doesn't matter what it is, but when I'm exposed to it, I feel helpless, I have no feeling sometimes, or I have no sense of self, and it brings a big range of emotion. How a person experiences any incidents and how they deepen in them, it depends on their cultural belief, their faith, the ability of social support, or their developmental stage. So I think this is very important. So the same incidents happen everywhere, but our culture gives us different responses than different other culture. And also our faith may help or not if we are not deep in the faith. And at which age, which stage in our life? It could be not only the age, but is it happening in a stage that I'm having a big change in my life? So that's why adolescence is usually a difficult time, because loads of changes is happening. School change, budget change, identity change, and that's when trauma or difficult incidents can affect us. So someone said earlier, exams were very difficult, traumatizing, because it's the difficult time in our life. We are developing, we are forming our identity, and now we have to face decision-making, planning for university, moving school. So that's when it is, this is age. But also could be later on. So one of my big interests is the women in the pregnancy period and having a new baby. This is a massive change in life, and then could be exposed to something painful. And the effect, this is where it is. The effect can happen immediately. So someone had a car crash and then really affected by it, or hit by serious physical health, or a big loss in their life. So it could, straight away people can see the impact. The person can understand the impact. It can be gradually, and it could be years after. So it happened that sometimes, and this is not uncommon, the parent suddenly become very ill when the child comes to the stage when the father or the mother were subject to a problem. So maybe a man traveled, faced all of difficulty, managed to brush it off, carry on working, bringing a family, but at the age of 13 or 14, they had difficult time. Once their child becomes 13 or 14, suddenly everything comes back. So it can happen at any time. And then maybe people will say, oh well, you've done very well. Are you dramatizing it? You've done all of that. So it may happen. So I will bring in some event that cause trauma. In kind of lay language, they're called type of trauma, but they're not. These are the events that cause trauma. So if you read some of that, you may have been through one of those, or you know someone who has been through one or two. But life is full of it. We've all been going through one or the other at one point in our life, up until the end of our life. Because this is human being, we probably will face something at one point. So if we haven't as yet, we probably will. But we probably have been and brushed it off, or we suffered with it. So there are so many life events that may contribute. So what Marianne brought in the morning, I'll just visit it again with a bit more explanation, if I may. So the different type of trauma is acute trauma, and a very painful event, and we react. It could be ongoing difficulty, and we call it chronic. The complex is adding on to what Marianne said. Is someone who had a number of traumas in their life, but then before they recover, another one come, and then before they recover. So some of the kind of, she referred to difficulties in the family that the person couldn't cope with. And then they start to grow up and then probably left the family home to go to university, and then an incident in the university, burglary, attack, abuse. So this is another complex trauma. And then later on in life, another serious physical. So it's kind of a trauma incidents after one. So that's when it becomes complex. Someone brought in the service, and this is what we call secondary or vicarious trauma. So we are exposed to a lot of suffering. It affects actually people working in the emergency department, in the ambulance, in the police, when they see very horrendous stuff day in, day out. But servant also, Abuna would listen to painful story for people he loves and serves day in, day out. So this is what we call it secondary or vicarious trauma. But what I want to say, the difference between us and the first respondent, not only that professional distance, but we serve Jesus. So we take the pain and put it back on Jesus. These are your children. I'm listening to them. I'm affected by them, but it's your work. Abuna was doing it better than us. So even though Abuna, in your congregation, there are thousands of people around. I heard it's a massive congregation, and Abuna listened to so many. At the end of the day, we put it back on Jesus. And if we, while serving, we don't do that, we will be burned out. But like I was talking to Mary earlier on, when and this is actually something I bring it to quite a lot to servant. When Jesus was a human being like us, he would go and say, I want to go to the mountain and have time for myself. I need my space. I need to pray. I need to eat. I need to sleep. I need to take care of myself. For them.
But like when to do it, like there is some instance in the Bible that Jesus did absolutely the opposite. When he knew that his relative Hannah Ma'amidan died, and the crowd approached him, he didn't say, okay, give me my space, no, I want to go and cry now. No, he's like, it said like, Rahum wa Hanan. It's like, he felt sorry for them and he served them. Even at this time, he had someone he lost, and it wasn't just a car accident lost, it was a severe loss. He got he got slaughtered. So when to do it like Jesus, to serve till the end, and when to have, I have my boundaries, because sometimes I feel like boundaries will make me like selfish, will make me like an enemy.
So Jesus cried for Lazarus, and when it was about John the Baptist, I can't remember what did he do, but again, it's depending on your ability at the time. So if you feel like tired and drained, take your space. But if you are able to do it, do it. And I think even most of that, so if you read the story, for example, of Paul, he had time when he had to be on his own and write and reflect. So it is a fine line. It is a fine line of being, it's not selfish, taking care of myself to continue to do the job, or because I'm selfish. You know, how can we find the fine line between taking care of myself to continue to do and then being selfish? Do you know how to differentiate?
If you're burnt out, if you feel you're getting to a point where you're burnt out, you need to tell yourself to take yourself back.
So burnout is something new in my life. As a psychiatrist, I didn't use that up until a few years ago. It's a new terminology, and I think we'll talk about the use of terminology in a minute. But yeah, when you feel like I really can't, now I can't. But sometimes, it's like, ask your parents when sometimes, if you know a caring parents, because there are selfish parents, ask your caring parents when they wake up at 5 o'clock and do that, and then they still do that, and then they sleep very late. They come to time, they say, I have to go to my bedroom now. So that you can continue, and that's not when you need the time, not because you are selfish, it's because I came to a point that I just can't. It affects me deeply, it goes into me, it's going to traumatize me. It's not easy, but you learn about yourself. You observe, you pray, you talk about the service. At work, so I have days when I hear stuff that, with all my years, so I started to practice psychiatry before most of you were in Egypt. I've been in UK from 95. So I've done that. So in all of that, sometimes some cases hit me. They're too hard to listen to. Then I just have to have a walk around the hospital. But other day, I can listen to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bad story, but I was in a strong position. Because what affects us, not only the story, but where are we in our life? We could be tired, we could be busy with something else, maybe so many factors are affecting us. So it depends on, so think of what's going on in your life as well. And put your family, your closer people, equal importance, yeah? So sometimes we get so busy with serving that we forget our own people. And it's a bit of a balance. It's a bit of a balance.
Yeah, but still when they told Jesus okay, your mother and siblings are outside, and I was like, those are my mother, those are my siblings. So don't know, I always feel like there is a contradiction between psychiatry and mental health, and between what Jesus did, because Jesus was doing it till the end, till the very end. He has got someone who died, who slaughtered, and he's serving the crowds. But on the other side, if we are talking about counseling or psychiatry or whatever, they will be like, oh, you have to give yourself a space. You need to know how you feel first. But I believe Jesus at those points, he wasn't that happy. It wasn't that easy. He had someone who died, and he was a human at that time. He was crying.
He was human and God, and he had a mission. بس أنا معك. أنا أول ما when I wanted to do psychiatry when I was in the medical school. So I did all other special, but I always wanted that. But at the beginning, I questioned the same question. So I went to my father of confession. I said, where is it mental health and where is it faith?
Yeah.
So I've been through the same question. But as I told you, so Jesus sometimes managed to carry on and sometimes said to his disciples, let's go and eat. Let's go and rest. He needed to sleep. He needed to have his own space when he's God. So as a human being, he had time when he managed to carry on with the mission, and sometimes when he needed to. Abuna, correct me, I'm talking, but I accept that I may deliver the wrong faith message, so Abuna, please come into it. But this is what I learned, that he sometimes say, I need to have a space. Not only him, all of his good people, all of the godly people had time when they carried on, and other time when they say, I just can't. When you feel I just can't, genuinely, but this is a maturity in the faith as well. We grow in the faith. When we are young in the faith, regardless the age, we are not able to do what we are supposed to do. And then with time, when we are stronger in faith, when we are kind of having the Holy Spirit flowing more from us, then with time we can do a bit more. I mean, أنت تتكلم على كده, and I think of, and I was, there was a chat earlier at the end of last talk, and I was thinking suddenly of the martyrs of Libya.
Okay.
Have you heard the wives talking about them?
Yeah.
They had no sign of trauma.
Yeah.
They had no sign of trauma. Their faith is way mature than us. When you hear the message of Marianne about faith, I know faith personally. His faith got him through that. And today, we know, and this is my apology. And today, as we know, is St. Mary's birthday. I'm thinking of St. Mary in today's life. She had all the kind of trauma. She had the bullying of a young girl being pregnant. She has been very poor. She lost her parents at young age. She had to be connected to an old man. Luckily, she didn't have a mobile phone. She had to be displaced to Egypt. She had to be dragged. Her labor, I work in perinatal mental health, which is a time around when her labor was in the worst situation, and then she has been to come back, and then her son told her, I'm busy for you now. Remember when you told your mom I'm busy? When my son tells I'm busy, it's a nightmare. So she had it all. She had it all. She had no trauma. She's a human being. So St. Mary is a holy woman, because in spite of the fact that she's a human being like each one of us, her faith was big. So talking about the relationship with the service, I'm not talking in the secular world, the relationship with the faith, depending on the strengths of it, we will be able to cope a bit more. But is it against the humanity? No. If we can't, we can't. I mean, if you look at all the godly people, we need to list them together. How at one point, when they were kind of seen as an example to send God message, they said, God what? God no. مش كده بقى؟ صلحني لما اتكلم في الانجيل. أنا آخري الكلام.
No, because at the same time, we as a priest, when we found cases like this, we do not get interfered in these cases, we refer them to the psychiatric as well.
Sometimes time is, the message is, it's not only about faith.
Yeah.
In Egypt, I practiced mental health in a hospital that was open to support the church. And we had priests and monks suffering with mental illness. And they were asked to come, I'm talking about the 90s, before mental health awareness was high. The head of the monastery will send them for treatment. So there is no contradiction, but sometimes it's difficult to identify.
Auntie,
So
in the last time said you have to be very careful when you're serving. are you serving from a full tank or an empty tank? Like if you have the tank in your car, petrol tank, you always try not to be empty, because what will happen at the bottom is all the bad stuff precipitated at the bottom. So if that comes into your engine, that will bust your engine. So imagine if you're serving people from an empty, tired place. You're going to be projecting your trauma on them, your insecurities on them, because you're so tired and so exhausted. It's actually you're doing them a service by stepping out, getting filled by God, and coming back again and speaking life over them.
100%, but the tank is faith. Yet, we are human beings. And I know sometimes it's difficult to differentiate. Because we are human beings, so if I go and serve as a human being, more often than not, I fail. But if I go and serve as God used me, more often than not, it works. And we can be rubbish because we remember that God chose the most illiterate. So in the service is slightly different, but we are talking to people who want to know about themselves, who want to be a bit empathetic with the sufferer around them. But the service and the delivery of service is we are used. If we don't think we are used by God, we were called upon, then we are not doing a service. But for our kind of best interest, for the best interest of the people who love around us, we need to understand what is the impact of trauma. Does it help a bit?
Yeah.
I know it's a very big thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask in the back, did you get it? I promise I'll pick on you. Yeah? Right, okay. So, and then we will talk a little bit on the intergenerational trauma, which Marianne referred to it, but I'll bring it slightly different as well. But it is, so intergeneration is the emotional psychological wounding that pass from one generation to generation. And then I will refer to the psychological part, but there is also a genetic part and biological part. Okay. Briefly, we will go through what Marianne said. What if I don't address my trauma? What will happen to me? There are loads of physical health problems. So people will have suppressed immunity. Most of the autoimmune disease are triggered by trauma. So people may have, so most of the autoimmune disease run in family. I don't know if you know what are the autoimmune. Do you know of any autoimmune disease? We are more aware of it now. I'm sorry? So rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis.
Is it lupus?
Lupus.
Fibromyalgia?
Fibromyalgia is a different story.
Okay.
But autoimmune is like anything that affects the immune system. So it can be running in family, and it may happen for a reason or not. But one of the triggers to bring the signs and symptoms of the serious health condition could be a trauma or stress. All the inflammation, cells, the tissue, the organ, if there is some cancerous mutation connected to trauma. The bone thinning, you know, what they call it osteopenia, interestingly. So there is a lot of factors, but one of the factors could be trauma. So the insulin, so people who have diabetes, now they find people they call insulin-resistant diabetes, most likely have some trauma, unresolved. There is nothing in black and white in medicine. Now I'm talking medicine, so there is no black and white in medicine, but we talk about possible factor. Obesity can be connected to trauma, heart disease, hypertension, which we all, and stroke. And you know all of the movies, especially if you watch any Arabic movie, someone has said them, oh, got stroke and heart failure. It's exaggerated, but it is true. But psychological factor is a long list as well. So it doesn't mean that every stress means post-traumatic stress disorder. Stress, trauma can contribute to a number of physical health conditions. That's why using lay language in describing the feeling may not match with if you go and talk to specialists. And anxiety could be a common one, is the commonest in fact. Depression, so they may not have post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's depression. Post-traumatic stress disorder is what people talk most about it because it has like a bit of more media effect. Obsessive compulsive disorder. So quite a lot of the new generation talk about I'm obsessed by, I'm obsessive. But obsessive compulsive disorder is a very difficult condition, and it's about someone who lost control and tried to control anything else. Eating disorder, I didn't put it in the list, which you can't control the situation because we said you lose control. So you try to control anything. You control your food, you control your behavior, you control your can't. So obsessive compulsive disorder. Medically unexplained symptom. And Marianne gave a very nice condition of the lady who was walking with a crane, and then because she had trauma, this is what we call medically unexplained symptoms. So you probably sometimes have cough that you can't understand. You go to the doctor, they do X-ray, they give you, and it doesn't go. It could be related to trauma. Headache, being the commonest one. People sometimes have epilepsy, seizure, non-epileptic seizure. So lots of non-medically unexplained. You go to the doctor, they say nothing is wrong with you. I say, there is something with me. And dissociation. I don't know if you know what about dissociation, but if you watch an Arabic movie, the person who forget everything, forget themselves, become a different person. So dissociation is when you can't face the pain of the situation, so you totally blank it. Another example is in bereavement. You imagine that the person who died didn't die. And addiction, and Marianne has thrown light on that. People who just can't deal with it, they blank it out. Not all the addiction, not all these conditions are always related to trauma, but the trauma can continue, can be referred to that. But I want to leave you with it then.
What about schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia, what about it?
So could it not be a consequence of trauma?
So it's a good question. So the schizophrenia has a kind of a different pathway, but that trauma may bring it quicker. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But intense stress can contribute to some brief psychotic symptom. But it doesn't have that. Because like Marianne said earlier, in the mental health, we have diagnostic criteria. So everything is in a syndrome, and there are criteria. So in the lay language, you use what you like, but when you go to the doctor, you may describe things different.
So when can this psychotic symptom transform into
schizophrenia?
Yeah. So is it one-off?
It could be one-off. There is something called brief psychotic episode. But if the person was potentially going to develop schizophrenia, it will change to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But we can all be psychotic one time. Mm-hmm. In what way? So if you are walking, this is an example of an anxiety intensive. So if you are walking in the dark and you are a bit scared, and you've heard about story of someone attacked, and then you hear some noise behind you, most likely you will strongly believe there is a person behind you. So psychosis is about being not like out of the world. So there is no one behind you, but you're convinced there are steps and there is someone. This is a small kind of. So we all heard someone calling our name. We don't hear voices, but sometimes when we are tired, we hear someone calling our name. We imagine things so that it can be a person. So yeah, so we are all prone to this psychotic feeling, but it's not psychosis. So this is what we will work on, how to break the cycle. We need to accept that the trauma-related reaction, because it's not the incidents, it is the trauma-related reaction, can be adaptive. Not easy, but can be adaptive. So we can move on from we can move on towards actually, not from, towards a more hopeful, strength-based position. So we probably had a horrible time at one point, or a build-up, but it is adaptive, it's changeable. and we can move on. And we can build on the belief that our response to traumatic experience can bring in creativity. By the way, Fadi was, Marianne is a very, very kind of capable artist. I don't know all the icons in the church is campaign. If you've been to the cathedral, he's done it all on his own. So he's very creative. So he probably had something, and then it changed to creativity. And we can be determined. We can be resilient. And I think this is when we can think we were traumatized, but we can be resilient. So what is resilience? Can anyone tell me what is resilience?
I've got a perfect phrase for that. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Perfect definition of resilience. But
this is a nice, easy one. Very right, very right. Any understanding of resilience. So if you are working in atmosphere, they talk all the time about resilience, they know nothing about it. Honestly, we are resilient. They don't know.
Is it like your strength to cope with the situation?
Yeah. So there are lots to talk about, which I didn't want to bring it in, and there is something called window of tolerance. I don't know, it's not on the slides. I thought I will talk more than I write. So we are able to cope to a certain extent. We can tolerate certain things, but the stronger we are, this window of tolerance becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we can tolerate more and more and more. This is as a human nature in a secular world. We get stronger and stronger by faith. So, what is resilience? You know, I like this picture when I was looking at resilience. It's like it's a very dry desert, and then you can bring in some beautiful green plant. So it is the ability to view difficulties and obstacles as challenge. So they are not obstacles, they are not difficult. This is a challenge, I will fight it. And to view mistake as learning opportunity. So we may make mistakes. We may, because of whatever happened to our life, we are going to repeat the problem. But we can change it as learning opportunity. We accept and appreciate and respect our own strengths and quality. We are self-worth. And I hear some people say, I have nothing in me. But how come? We are Christian. We are born and we are created on God's picture. So if we can't find in our character, in our life, anything to give us self-worth, we remember the blood that was for us, that Jesus was on the cross for us. We are worth it. This is when we come find, but if we want to get out of the faith, if we are in a secular world, no one is coming out of the world with no self-worth. There is no one who cannot do something special than the other. It's just about accepting it and appreciating it. So then we can foster a hopeful and optimistic outlook about the future. Because I actually like the person that Marianne referred to, and he spoke about. If you put his name on YouTube, you listen to a lot of talk from him. And he one of the things, he's not the only one who spoke about, but he's kind of easy to talk. And because he say, I came from the Holocaust, he say that what happened has happened. It's not going to be undone. What hurt me has hurt me. It's not going to be undone. But it's about the future. And when we are in situations that are controllable, can actively problem solve. So sometimes we are uncontrollable situation. That's life. This is all the time. We are not controlling the world. If we think we can control it, we are unwell. I tell you that. If you think you are in control, come and talk to me. All the time. But sometimes there are situations we can control and situations we can adapt to. So when I was young, actually as it happened, my father and my father of confession used to say this prayer, God grant me the power to change what I can change, to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to find the difference. I should have put it. But I want you to remember, you probably hear it everywhere. God grant me the power to change what I can change, and to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we can't control everything, but when something is controllable, I can control. and accept and refrain the situation where situations are uncontrollable. So this is resilience. So we could be going through a very difficult time and we could have been deeply hurt, but we accept that we can change it to strengths. That easy said than done. I have to say that, and it depends how much we were traumatized. And trauma is a spectrum. So Marianne spoke about big T and small t, and I think she was talking about incidents. But also the impact on us could be from small impact to a massive impact. And we have to validate all of them. But what's happening now, and before I move into the other part, is we are brainwashed. I mean, you are in a generation a bit better than the younger one. The people who are born online, grew up online, we are brainwashed. This is what we call suggestibility. So the lay language is different. So everyone, I'm not undervaluing trauma impact on people, but everyone think that I'm traumatized, I am obsessed, I am bullied. Because we are in a generation, and I will come back to a bit more detail about that, we have become very self-centered. We are so much focused on inside. We are in the Western that we came in for better life, but it came at the expense of being isolated in our own community. Because I'm thinking what I deserve, I'm thinking what I should do to have my own space, my own time, my own comfort. Everything is my own. The more we are on our own very much, we are going to suffer. And this is now more understanding in the society. So they create a support group, but you have family, you have fellowship. So again, back to the point, where is it that I need to take care of myself, and where is it I need to be part of the society, part of my group? It's really hard, young girl. And I know you are struggling with that. And we, even the people who grew up in a different culture, now we are unable to see always the line between the two. So remember, the more you focus on yourself and your feeling and you go into deep, you may drown in it. But you've got to be aware of it though. Yeah. For that.
Can you give us an example when you said reframe the situation? Would you be able to give us like an example of that? The last point.
Yeah. So you talk about, you want an example of situation or more understanding to the word reframe?
Like, how can I reframe it like in a situation to make so I become resilient in that situation?
You are not resilient in situation, you are having the resilience as a character. So then you will be able to see, is this situation I can control? And you don't control the whole situation, you actually most of the time control your response to it. Or is it a situation that I will not be able to respond to it healthily and I will not change it? So then I will probably avoid interacting with it. But let me think of an example. So at work, for example, so I work for a hospital, and the system in the hospital has changed so many times over the years. So how I came into working in hospitals in years ago to today is different. So the kind of the political part of it is bigger than what I can do. So I try to say, well, now I'm in a situation that I cannot do what I can do to my patient because there are so many boxes I have to go through. And I'm not able to fight that. I'd be stupid to fight it. So I avoid fighting it, but I can do something little in my clinic. A small example. Take it to family life. So does anyone give me a family life that you don't know if it is controllable or uncontrollable situation? Away from bereavement and loss. So say you are at home and you have few siblings and your parents, which is not uncommon in our community, would favor one than the other. You are not going to fight your parents to say favor me. It's not going to change. Why did your parents favor this sibling and not you? And maybe they aren't. Maybe it's your perception. So that the fact that you sit and argue to say you favor them and not me is waste of energy to you and to your parents. So then see what in them that attract your parent kind of respect, and you may try to do that. Maybe this is another in the church. In the service, you know, the lead servant decided to do something. I see that in the service. So there is sometimes and often conflict in service, isn't it? So the servant are not happy with what's going on, there is a plan, someone else has a very good idea how to serve, and the lead servant isn't happy, and I see the conflict. So when I was young, when I started, we used to have servant preparation, so I did the course, we did the exam, I passed, and then I went to serve and I found lots of conflict. So I then decided not to serve. That was bad. But then when I come back to service, what I can manage, I can. What I can't doesn't mean that I refrain altogether. Yeah? So I look at the situation, what is it behind it? And I think something at the end of what is it you want from the situation? And then does it need a fight? Does it need going along with it? Does it need an avoidance? I think this may be. But resilience is a character. It's not one situation. It's a character that gets you to sort out this situation.
Is there like potentially an element of an optimistic mindset as well when it comes to like to control things and seeing things?
So it helps to have an optimistic mindset, optimistic, realistic mindset.
Okay.
Talking from personal experience, how do you draw the line between being resilient and anemic or stubborn or hard-headed? Like you just brute force, I'm going to do it, I'm going to tolerate it, I'm going to accept it. Is that the wrong form of resilience? Or how do you balance between just hard-headedness and good resilience?
Yeah, and I think again that's using the word. So anid is stubborn against people advice for no reason. But sometimes the resilience means that in spite of people caution, you probably think you can do it, and this is when people flourish. But you are not fighting with them, you are your ego aligned. Stubbornness needs a bit of ego over and above the other. You are stupid, I know I can, but the resilience, the optimism, the kind of achievement, the high achiever, believe in themselves without undermining others. So they may go and listen to people advise about possible obstacles, and they read it as challenges. So ما فيش الإيجو ده، ما فيش people may not come across as so self-inflated, but they know that in their heart they think other people are stupid. I am better than them. This is stubbornness, because stubbornness comes from undermining others. But if I respect everyone's opinion, if I follow their advice but take it as a challenge, and I believe in my self-worth and my capability, I'm more of a resilient person.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's an anonymous question. So how can we accept and reframe a situation when parents have been neglectful towards us? How can we reframe that parent-child relationship? Because we're not going to leave our parents, we're not going to forsake them, ignore them. So how can we reframe that neglect into something where we can grow in resilience?
That's a difficult one. But sadly, most of the time when parents are neglectful, the person doesn't know that they were neglected. So they're stuck in the same cycle. And then there is a lot of resentment to the parents, and then it turned out to be resentment everywhere. And it may affect the relationship with God, because if God is a parent, if God is my Father who are in heaven, and then my Father who is on the land is neglecting me, how I believe in God in heaven, to not neglect me in these massive millions and billions of people. This is a very hard one, and in my view the neglect is the hardest. But this is not to reshape the situation. If you realize that you are so affected in your relationship with God, with people, with yourself because of neglect, that could have been physical or emotional, now you know it is because of your parents, you're not going to change it. You're not going to bring the years of neglect back. It happened and you are hurt, but then you need to understand that they possibly had trauma themselves. You don't want to, it comes to a long-term healing. This is one of the hardest healing journey. And to then respect self, then love self, then trust in God, then trust in people around you will take a lot of reflection, acceptance, and admitting to it. And some people forgive and some people don't forgive. And that's something between them and God. But neglect, emotional neglect, is hard.
In a hypothetical situation like this, where let's say there is neglect from one of the parents, would you advise that person to keep in contact with the parent that neglected them, even though it could be a trigger for them?
In a secular work, I go along with their ability again. Yeah? And what the situation, so that if they need to stay with their parents for any reason, for financial reason, for whatever reason, it's going to be hard because they live with them. If they left, and actually this society invite them to leave to have their own space. If they left and they started to slowly build that, it depends on their level of strength build up. Because our response to trauma, as I said earlier, it's about culture, belief, and faith, but about personality. And what we didn't touch on, Marianne or myself, we are born with a personality that has nothing to do with circumstances. So we are born with our temperament. So some of us are born to be quiet, some of them are born to be extrovert, introvert. It comes with the colors of our skin, the colors of our hair, we come with personality. So important part of the personality. So this personality can help the healing and may not. So depending on how they're healing. In a church atmosphere, it's very harder for me because again, I can't tell to anyone, just neglect your parents, but preserve yourself. Pray for yourself, pray for your parents. Try to understand their problem if you want to. If you had the luxury to know where is your problem and to work on it, your parents didn't. They probably had problem and probably didn't. But she had it, she had this gift. You are getting better, you are getting stronger. Maybe you like to forgive them. And if you forgive them, then you can deal better with your trauma. But it's not always easy. And I heard, not only neglect, I heard horrendous story of abuse within the family. No one will blame you if you don't forget. I forgive, I think. أبونا ماليش دعوة أنا بتكلم لوحدي أنا But if the abuse, physical or sexual, happen systematically in the house where the comfort is, very hard to think that people would just heal quickly or forgive quickly. But God has His own way.
I also think the reframe question personally, trauma's already happened to you, it's gone. How it affects us, how it has affected us and how it affects us, I think that's what's in my control. So when I read the word reframe, that's what came to my mind. Okay, the damage might have happened, but I want to take control of my future. I want to make myself stronger. Yani you've neglected, that's okay. I will still build myself up. I will still build my career. I will still do stuff for me. If no one else recognizes me, I will value myself. I will want to build myself. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm just saying. I would like to. That's what I would think. And a character bit for me.
Yeah.
I always wonder, but it's Robin created there's all different characters. But I definitely think that Reborn actually had that strong resilience character. That even though the neglect and the thing is horrid, they're able to say, you know, so a righteous person would fall 7 times, but would get up again. Our Christian faith is around, let's get up again. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's how I would say it.
Yeah, but again, the spectrum of the trauma. So you could have been, I'm not referring to person, so I could have been affected by the incidents at a mild scale, or moderate scale, or severe scale. So how am I affected is what I should expect from myself. This is why talking about it will help, or listening to other people. So maybe something horrible happened, and then I was affected to some extent, and maybe something minor happened, but I was affected to maximum extent. So it's my response to what happened, and at what extent, and how can I deal with it. So what is the unhealed trauma? We spoke about the physical thing, we spoke about the mental disorder, the physical disorder, but in everyday language, the unhealed trauma can look like that. We probably don't have self-worth, we become codependent on others, so relationship tends to be always failing at all levels, friendship, partnership, and so on, work relationship. We could be always have this anxiety that will be abandoned. We will put people need, you know, people pleaser. It's sometimes it's used in social media as a bit of a glamorous thing. It isn't. It's morbid. I'm a people pleaser. It is not something that is good. Which again, there is a difference between putting my people I love ahead of me and pleasing them just to get the reassurance, to get some reassurance. It's a fine line. And always asking people to give me positive feedback. No one here to be praised, but constantly seeking a validation, always worried about what happens next, to a morbid level of anxiety, and so on. The worst of it is tolerating abuse by others. So if you know of people who go from one disturbed relation to another disturbed relation to another disturbed relation, they tend to have had some serious painful incidents that shaken their confidence and self-worth. And we call it kind of the victim behavior, so they are constantly in a position to be victimized. So if you serve someone, or if you yourself have been through someone who is, you say, they just don't learn. It is a judgmental thing. It's not they just don't learn, they just don't know what to do otherwise. This is how they made. So please, if you are serving younger people who are constantly in trouble, think, do they really not learn, or they have been through a traumatic life? Right, so this is a bit of science. I will, and thank God Abuna Mawud, go through breaking the cycle through spiritual thing. And I know on the pamphlet you had, someone discussed this with ChatGPT, isn't it? Who did the pamphlet?
The workshop.
Marlene and
Release.
Yeah, so they spoke to Mr. ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT gave a long list that looked like an easy answer. Some of them are very valid, and they are really good, and some of them is just imagination, because the trauma healing is a very long process, depending on the extent of it. But thank you for doing it, I really like them. So, is trauma in the Bible?
Yes.
Yes.
Where is mentioned trauma?
Through the stories.
Through stories. Thank you. So the word trauma is never mentioned as it is. You know, every few generations new words come.
Yeah.
And trauma is the one now. But the Bible speaks very directly about deep suffering and emotional wounds and healing, and elaborately sometimes. Where is it the best described?
Jesus on the
Christ.
Christ suffered, but as a human being, the sons are actually I diagnosed David the prophet with suffering with depression.
Oh, wow.
And I shared that with Abuna. He did. He had all the signs and symptoms of biological severe depression. Okay. Yes, he had severe. He was betrayed. He had all kind of trauma, didn't he?
Yeah.
If you read David's story, I love the guy. Of course, we all do. But he was the most neglected in his family. Do you know that?
Yeah.
So when Samuel came, he gave all of his brother, and the father forgot about him, talking about neglect. He had all the neglect. The father was kind of wealthy enough, but David was just left with the sheep. He was the one, no mention to his mom, so I don't know if he had any connection with his mom. But I think later on he asked when he was in a war, he asked that his family is protected, so his mom probably was that. And then he became a friend with Jonathan, who his father wanted to kill him. He was the king, and he would ask God, why? I mean, you made me a king to ask this king to kill me. He was running away, he was betrayed, he had blessed him all kind of traumatizing incidents, and he suffered. And he spoke to God about his bones are pain, he was crying, he said, I don't sleep, I don't eat. These are biological symptoms of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. But what it comes with it, that it did not stop him being God saying about him, he is having my heart. My heart, David's heart is like my heart. He did all the kind of sins, if we want to be judgmental, because we are a judgmental society. He did it all badly. And but after that, he felt bad about it. So in the Psalm, in Elijah's one, Elijah spoke about, he questioned God, he actually argued with God, because he was so traumatized. He told him, why did you send me to these people? And the Bible described that. And the Bible, the Holy Spirit, God allowed the Holy Spirit to talk about the human suffering like us today. Because we are all human beings. And we, with whatever we have in us, we still can serve God to the extreme. So the Bible acknowledges the suffering. The Bible talks about the deep suffering, refer to the people in trauma. But then
we get them. I'm going to be honest, okay? When I was suffering with severe anxiety, I was constantly labeled and bombarded with words. If you had faith, you shouldn't be having anxiety, okay? And because I went through a traumatic experience that triggered that. So we, sometimes in the church, we're close-minded or lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, whatever it is. We think, as long as I'm walking, I'm a Christian, mental health should not affect me, okay? I wouldn't be depressed, have anxiety, bipolar, traumatized, any of these things. If I have any of these things, I am deviating from the faith. I don't have faith, and then I get alienated, ostracized. I'm not believing in God, trusting in God, and all of these things which take you down a horrible horrible side. How can we change that environment as youth are coming up, or the new generation, so other people, when they're suffering like that, they don't step back from church, but stay within the church space?
Thank you.
And that's sort of connected to the question from earlier this morning about how can we connect with God without sort of dismissing or suppressing our emotions or our traumatic experiences,
and how not to diminish people on their feelings.
So there are quite a lot of things. First of all, it's brave to talk about your own personal pain and anxiety in the church. But where we are now, we are in a church talking about trauma and anxiety, and Abuna is mine. If a church is changing, the understanding, but the Bible was understanding. So had human beings got confused about how to serve, it doesn't mean that God isn't. isn't there? Because the Bible spoke about all of this feeling and didn't hide it and didn't dismiss it. And it's written in chapter, read the Psalm, most of them have a lot of suffering. Feeling neglected, feeling rejected, didn't he? Elijah the same. So what I want to say, the Bible is not dismissing it. The Bible is our guide. And in the church, people sometimes make mistakes. But our church now, in our generation, we accept that this is not something to be dismissed. How to change the church? Thank God the church is changing. And in many churches, there is like a counseling group, like in Mashura, in Egypt, and in America, and there is more understanding. What I want to say is that an anxiety is again a spectrum. So none of us at no point didn't feel anxious sometimes. If we never felt anxious, we probably are neurodivergent. And even the neurodivergent suffer anxiety in a different way than others. So anxiety is part of it. And what Marianne explained earlier is actually we are created to have this reaction, the hormones in us, the cortisol, the adrenaline and the noradrenaline. We are created because in the early days of humanity, we had to protect ourselves by running away from animals. So it is actually a created reaction. And it does help us to achieve sometimes. So if we are having project to finish, exam to achieve, we sleep less and we are more alert. And this alertness and less sleep is helpful. Then it moves from being helpful and anxiety or worries to a bit more mild anxiety. This mild anxiety will be managed by faith. If I am not sure of what's going on, if I am a bit worried, the faith will hold me. When it becomes extreme and morbid, this is an illness. So the illness, if it is a disorder, so again we talk about spectra, but people sometimes in their lack of knowledge they mix it all. But if it is a disorder, you need treatment. A treatment could be therapy, could be medication. It's like depression, it's like the despair and hopelessness. So hopelessness, in God, the hope comes. But if it is morbid, no, it's an illness. It's like someone who has chest infection and we ask them to pray, or someone who has diabetes and say just adjust your food and pray. And I think there is some more awareness. And I tell you, it's coming to everywhere in the church now. Not that it wasn't there. I mean, there were a lot of, how did we survive 2,000 years of humanity? This is the church who appreciated humans, but there are faults and there are wrongs in servants, in fathers, in bishops, because we are all human beings. They have their own trauma maybe. So there were problems, and I think partly, at one point our Coptic church was colored by the Islamic kind of in Asia. So some of the strictness and some of the rigidity could be influenced by the culture. However, I like the structure and the rituals of our church because it maintained 2,000 years. But if you drift a lot, and again, may I carefully said, if you are too bumpery, too relaxed, look at how some of the Western church are. The Bible is changed. They read it differently. They're lost. I think some of the Western church are lost, and they talk quite a bit about mental health. Too much of mental health.
So, forgetting about the church and talking.
أبونا لو غلطت تصلحني. لا يا أبونا ما فيش لحظة.
Not talking about the church, but about the Bible and about Christianity itself. Okay, so I feel like there is always a contradiction between mental health and the Bible. Not that the Bible is against it.
احنا حكينا من بدري. قول تاني ولا يهمك.
I mean like if someone prayed and felt better, but if they talk to their service they will feel better as well. So where is the line between that? Okay, like if I'm talking to the service and I'm feeling better, or if I'm talking to the service and I'm knowing myself more than while I'm praying, because it's kind of having the same result, if I can say that. So what I'm saying, like usually, I'm not talking about the disease of mental health. I'm talking about the mind says that you just need to talk to a counselor. Okay, mashura, just mashura. So where is the difference? Because if I pray, I will feel better. God will highlight where is my problem. But if I talk to a counselor, kind of doing the same. So
why is it either or? Why is not the two?
Then why?
Why not?
Then if I'm going this direction, taking what I get, why am I doing the other direction? If I'm
there are no different direction, have you?
Okay, if I'm doing, but why I'm doing both?
Why
if
not?
I'm getting the same thing,
If
why
I
I'm
need
getting
both?
the same thing 2 times?
Why? If I need both. I mean, if you prayed and felt better, but then the problem happened again, and then you prayed again, and then the feeling come back again on you. So it sounds like you need a bit of help as well. But I tell you what's the difference, if I may as well. If you look at the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, each of them had different approach from Jesus, isn't it? So, and he had a bit of favoritism, fair enough. So John was his favorite. Why? Because John had the character of being the favorite. And Peter was, he told Peter off a few times, and I know you will talk about Peter later on. So he told him off, but he loved him so much, and he used to choose him with John and Peter's brother. So everyone has a different approach. Everyone was Jesus' close friend, but everyone needed different approach. And Thomas needed Jesus to come specially for him. So you talk about the faith, you talk about the relationship with God, it's very different from one to the other. If that's what you need, that's what you get. So someone will pray and it will be comfortable, that's it. Someone will pray and is not comfortable, ask for help, nothing wrong with that. And a third person will ask to see with their own eyes, God, I want you to give me a sign now, like Thomas. You will get it. So it's not contradicting. If you need both, have both. And we talk about mind formats, but I know you meant not an illness.
Yeah, but the thing the counselor or the therapist will do, they will deal with everyone different. They will not deal with the one who's got anxiety as the one who's got bipolar or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like it's the same.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I know it's not, but
yeah.
I mean, like always, like sometimes we go to God for our mental health, and the same for the therapist. If that makes sense.
Can I just add something? I think it might answer your question, it might not. But correct me if I'm wrong. But medically, religion or spirituality is one of the biggest protective factors with mental health.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Not always. Not always. I'll come to that in a minute. But I want to finish with you. So what is the confusion? Is that why do I need both?
Yeah. Why do I?
Because sometimes
like as we used to say in the back days, why do I need a therapist if I've got God? If you are praying, then you shouldn't be upset. If you are praying, you shouldn't be.
But this is
depressed.
what we know is not right.
Okay, exactly. But the other way around. If I'm going to a therapist and I'm feeling better, someone will say, why I need God then?
Because God is not only. I like this example. I heard it recently. God is not an office to put your request on. God is a relationship. And if my relationship with God is a little bit affected by an issue I have, why don't I deal with it?
Yeah.
You see? So my relationship with God, I hope, is to get stronger, to be united more and more, to have the work of the Holy Spirit strong in me. So I know that when I see God in the eternity life, I feel comfortable there. It's not like it's a new thing, so I better go to hell. You know what? So this is my relationship with God. My relationship with God is eternal. I'm looking all my life to be closer. But on the way, because I'm a human being, I can be ill, I can have any kind of physical health, mental health, a difficult life that I need to deal with. I need to go to work and I need to bring up a family and I need to do that and I need to do that. but the aim is to be closer to God. If my closeness to God is affected by my family, then he's not my priority. Affected by mental health, I need to deal with it. Affected by so some people, for example, find it very hard, this is beyond me of course, that important for the relationship with God to do mataniyat. And then they get arthritis and they can't do the matanya. They go for treatment just to do the matanya. So their aim is the relationship with God. While I go to deal with my knees so that I can run the marathon, which I can't of course. But you know, this is a difference. What do you deal in your life with, and what is your main aim, the ultimate relationship with God. Now about the spiritual life, I don't shy away in a politically incorrect way to ask people about their faith. Because sometimes the faith can be hindering, like it was mentioned earlier. So if someone, and this is I learned years ago when I was in Egypt as well, so one of the important bits is guilt versus repentance. So sometimes unknowingly the relationship with the church makes us have to feel the guilt. The guilt is morbid, and I actually heard a lovely talk from Sayyidina Amba Angelis about the difference between guilt and feeling that I made a mistake, I need to repent, God will forgive me, I will try to not do it again. But guilt, some rituals can actually, and we are a ritualistic church, but it keeps us going. We have to, like, I remember, I don't know, you didn't come from this generation, you can't spit, you can't wash your teeth after the communion. What's in the calendar? It can actually add to some obsessionality, unrealistic. So faith, the relationship with God, the healthy one, will protect us. If it turns out to be rituals, it will hinder us from God. It will fill us with sense of disgust, with dirt, when we are all clean and forgiven. And it's sometimes very difficult. Because if I did something depending what I've done, like imagine David, he was actually at one point a horrible person. There is an English word for that. He was horrible, he betrayed his friend, he sent him to be killed, he took his wife, he actually had, so he had a good package of sins. And then he cried, he said, God, I'm in your hand, you decide, you punish me, and he cleared. And then he continued to praise the Lord. So he didn't live with the guilt. He just acknowledged his mistake, he repented to the extent of the mistake, and then moved on. And we all made horrible mistakes. If it's stuck in our mind with ongoing guilt, this is not right. Serious guilt is morbid. Accepting mistake, accepting it was wrong, repenting, washed and clean after the confession is not. So yes, spiritual life is a healthy one.
Sorry, just to announce point, and I don't mean to labor it, but to your point, why the two? If one works, why do the other? We have confession and repentance. We repent personally to Christ and have our prayer time and repentance there, but we go to our Father of confession to get the earthly counseling of how to prevent relapse and re-falling into sin. So it's not one or the other, the two do go hand in hand. You do your prayer, you get comfort from God, because as the Holy Spirit, He is the great counselor. He is a counselor. He can provide you that comfort, that solace, that grace to overcome. But in speaking to an earthly person, your father of confession, or a counselor, a therapist, you get the practical aptitude or practical ability to overcome and to persevere through it, and going back to the resilience. So it's not either or, they're not contradictory, they are complementary. Sorry, I think that works.
Can I add something as
It's
well?
possible.
Nikki?
I'm sorry.
Is that sometimes God actually, when you talk to Him and you're doing your quiet time, actually He's leading you to go to a counselor. So He is like, I want you, there is a problem that you keep repeating, not noticing, and there is a pattern in your behavior. And you keep praying to me, God, for example, you get angry, okay? One of the cycles, you don't know why you get angry. and God, I don't want to get angry, and every time I get angry, I feel guilty, I feel bad, I repent, I don't want to confess, and I still get angry. God, please heal me. God, please heal me. It's part of his healing journey. He's like, you know what? I want you to go to a therapist, because the therapist will sit down with you. It will go down the list and say to you until she finds or he finds the root of that problem. Is like, well, actually, you've been through X, Y, and Z. You have this issue, that issue, that issue. God wants you to work on your trust issue, abandonment issue, neglect issue, or any of these things. And there is healthy ways to reframe your mind by the help of the therapist. But who directed you to the therapist? It's actually God directing you to that one. So, and I was confused when you're saying why this or that. They both work in harmony together to heal you.
But it's a question that I personally asked when I started my practice. What am I going to do if I believe in God? So it's fair question. Thank you. When I take someone I love to a doctor in any specialty, I pray that God give wisdom to this doctor so we're not lost. And when I see my patient, sometimes I pray, I wish I can pray for everyone, I pray that I have the wisdom not to mislead them. Yeah? So pray, if anyone needs to see a counselor, pray that God give the counselor the wisdom. They don't go against. So come back to the trauma in the Bible. So
one thing, don't forget we are, as human beings, we are formed from three components: body, soul, and spirit. Body, which is the flesh and the needs of the body, and the blood and so on. Soul is the mind and the emotions and the will. Spirit is the relationship with God. So everyone needs their specialist. Yes, God is the truth. We say in the Shaykh Marna, he is the truth physician for our soul and our spirits. But this does not contradict that my soul, my GP treating my body, but cannot be able to treat my soul, which is a trauma or anything like that. That's a catch point. My spiritual father or my relationship with God give me strength, give me power, give me help, but does not mean ignore and say, no, I'm not going to the doctor as long as I'm praying. See, there is a need for my body and for my soul and for my spirit.
Thank you أبونا بالظبط. طيب نرجع تاني للتروما في البايبل. So, and this is what Abuna just said. It affects the body and the mind. So the mind or the soul is where the trauma is in. So this is where the trauma is in the Bible. Although the word trauma never used, it was acknowledged, it was expressed, it was written, it was experienced by most of God's holy people, and it is never minimized. It affects us physically. And some of the verses in the Psalm and in Elijah describe the pain in the body, the tears, the lack of inability to eat and so on. And the Bible says healing is gradual. It's not instant. And in fact, the biggest sin was Adam's sin. Took years and years for Jesus to come. So it's usually a long process that we need to be patient with. So can we break the cycle? Now we understand what it is. Can we break the cycle? Yes, we can. So first step is to know that I am traumatized, not because of the incidents that will never be reversed, but I am affected. I accept that. It may not help to blame others, but now I'm affected. And I think of all the godly people who express their distress after being traumatized. So I mentioned David and I mentioned Elijah. Anybody else in the Bible was traumatized? Some Paul. Actually, I will mention a couple of verses from his book. Jesus Christ was traumatized.
Job.
Joseph.
Job.
Ayub.
Job, yeah. That Bible had it all.
The bleeding woman.
The bleeding woman. And it was mentioned, Marianne spoke about her. I didn't watch The Chosen. All of you watched it. I think I have
Oh,
to.
you have to watch it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
I thought this. I heard it's a bit drifting from the true Bible. لكن يعني أتفرج خلاص.
You can analyze them.
I get
Added a few more stories around.
so the reading woman. Who else? Joseph was traumatized, betrayed by his sibling.
The Samaritan woman.
The Samaritan woman. Yeah. Anybody else?
St. Mary. St. Mary.
St. Mary. She had all the trauma.
Yeah.
Matthew.
Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew, the gospel writer.
Yeah.
When was that?
I think it was chosen.
I only reservation about the chosen. That's exactly why. They can
I thought, look, in most of the Elijah was traumatized and was betrayed. Faddal. Jeremiah. So most of the godly people had trauma in their life. Some of them expressed it in much details than others. But the message is, it's okay to know that we were traumatized. There were incidents that hurt us. The incidents will not be reverted. Our parents will not change. Whoever bullied me will not come back to my life and say so. There will be no apology for whoever traumatized us. Only in the Egyptian movies. That they come back and say, oh, I'm sorry. It does not happen. It's about me affected, accepted that I was affected. And then I have to say, I need the courage to say, what happened in my life affected me. I'm not, whatever happened, but now I'm affected. And I need to deal with it. And this is when in Corinthians, this is when St. Paul mentioned. And I love this verse because we sometimes feel exactly the same. We were pressed, we were hard pressed in every way. The guy suffered. And he was betrayed by a friend. And he had argument with his friend. And people tried to split between him and his friend, the people he served. The church he went to and took risk, then they reversed back to their own habit. So he was traumatized and he said, I was traumatized. So he admitted to it. And this is Paul, with his passion, with his hard kind of fighting, he spread quite to most of the world. I mean, every disciple has a role, but most of the world went through St. Paul. So we now know that we acknowledge, sometimes we can't, so we need to reflect, and then we admit to it. And who to admit to is a very important question. So we talk about counseling, but please choose your counselor. In a secular world, they increase the sense of selfishness and they break family. This is my view. So I would worry about any of my people I love to send them to non-Christian counselor. So, but you can talk to a trusted, reliable, faithful body. And this is when the fellowship is very important. Someone who share your faith, share your culture, understand your roots, understand your aim in life is to move on to eternity with Jesus and help you through the process with no compromise to your faith. And in our church, we probably have some people who let us down, no doubt, good servant on the surface, but not as good otherwise. But we have much more servants who would do anything for us, who listen, who understand. And this is a good forum. And always again remember that God's people, faithful God people, suffered. And during their suffering, they ask God why. So if you don't feel like you can talk to God now, He will accept that. And if you feel like you want to tell Him why this happened to me, He will accept that. We saw that through the Bible. And the nicest story that is very clear was Elijah, when he was so angry and then he decided to refrain from food, from people, and went into the cave. And God didn't tell him Are you joking? Am I sending as a prophet and you tell me why and you go and hide? He didn't do that. He spoke, he whispered. So I suggest, and I've been through all of us, none of us, no faithful person missed the time when they question God why. In all of the faithful people, the most senti sense, our أبونا يوحنا لا بس any other thought مش عايزة أروح سينما لو قال لي ربنا يجي خلاص يا So it is true that it's okay to ask God why. David, half of his psalm is asking God why. Elijah did say why. So it's okay if you're angry with God to tell him I'm angry with you. We probably have been through difficult circumstances. We didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. We can ask that. Talk to him. The most important thing is when we try to heal, accept that it is a long journey. So the fact that, for example, the story that Marianne said, that the lady who came in 6 months, she didn't need the cane, is just the start of her journey. She probably gone back to the cane again, and then she probably stopped it again, and then it is a long journey, depending on the depth of suffering. So if we suffer too much, we'll take longer to improve, and we need to be patient with that. Intergenerational trauma, I know it was mentioned, but I want to talk a bit about it because we are all immigrants. So our parents came in, some of them made the decision thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, like I did, and it's not greener. I made the decision. And some of our parents, some of my kids may think that, but some of our parents had to flee difficult situation. They went through horrendous time to come. So as immigrant, and no matter how you live, you have a British passport, you are born and brought up, if you are in this country, you are an immigrant. And now, bless him, Nigel Farage is going to take over and constantly talking about immigration, constantly making us doubting ourselves. Be minded that our parents, your parents, so this is what is meant by intergenerational. Quite a lot of you, parents, if you didn't come straight yourself, suffered to settle in this country. So how did they deal with their suffering? They probably passed it on to you without you knowing. And if you are third generation, maybe some of you are third generation, so it was your grandparents who came in, it might have come. You need to be aware of it. It's not easy. And beside all the genetic and what have you, this is something you are probably resentful to. And the resentfulness is a sign of being traumatized. And this is something probably we need to talk about it more in our church, which we avoid. But this kind of the parents' trauma, when it goes to you in different shape. So sometimes they are very hyper overprotective because they think the world is not safe. And they feel in you consciously and unconsciously to believe that the world is unsafe. So you grow up feeling unsafe. You grow up feeling vigilant of people, very sensitive to remark about race. You are too much uncomfortable with that. They probably didn't want to bother you with the trauma they've been through. So they don't talk about how much boat they jumped, how many countries they had to go through to come here, how much they suffered to find a room to live in. So I know a very respectable, loving family. They came in 3 and they had to live in a room with no toilet. They had to go study. They had to look for a job. They don't talk about it to their kids. You probably don't know all what your parents have been through. But this silence is a trauma for you because you learn not to talk about suffering. You know how to avoid, to brush it off. So this is how it comes to you. Be conscious of that. And it could be that there are ongoing stressors. So every time there is a question about renewing passport, visiting own country, talking about the immigration in the media, it actually activates your parents' situation, it activates something trauma in you, and I want you to be conscious of it. Because as immigrants, we don't talk much about it, but it is significant. And it comes even harder if some of our parents were married to other kind of culture who also went through trauma. And then you have two traumatized parents trying to bring you up. So if you grew up thinking that, I'm not excusing, but I'm offering explanation. If you grew up thinking that you were neglected, think why your parents didn't look like neglecting you. Because probably they thought they've done enough to suffer to bring you better life. Maybe that. And it may help you with the healing process. Right, they come with that, they come with the intergenerational trauma, but they bring in resilience. These are the people who knew how to adapt to various difficult times. And they also kept the family. So they kept the culture, they kept the family, they kept the identity. So they come with the trauma resilience that they also pass it on to you. And I would want you to think about it. I'm not minimizing suffering by any means. This is what I do, this is what I believe in, but also always trying to understand how can you get better. Look at the positive if you can. So they kept family. Right, so I'm wrapping up soon. So far, we revisited what do we mean by trauma. We revisited that it is on a spectrum. So you heard it twice. You can't just sleep today and forget. We understood a bit about the types of trauma, and we looked at we can break it. We can break it either on our own or looking for help. And the help can be with servant, can be within the fellowship, can be with a buna, can be with a therapist. But if it is too much, read the Bible first, and if it is too much, ask for professional help. But be careful who to ask for. And I want to leave you with a few verses that I think they help, and I use them to help my children when they were going through a tough time. So I love these verse about when we say we have no power, because this is it about trauma. We lose the sense of control, we lose the what we can do. So then we can cry to God and say, we have no power, nor we know what to do. And I love this verse. This is actually the one I used for years, and I still use it. But our eyes are upon you. And that was in preparation for a war that they won when they said it from the depths of their heart. And we are in a constant war now. And again, the other verse is that nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. And by that I don't mean in a war, but in our abilities. So sometimes we are so depleted, but we can work, God can use us. Because I want to come back to what is our aim from going through life, from healing our trauma, from dealing with our physical health, from looking for job, from building family or going to monastery. The ultimate aim is not to lose our sight on God. And no matter how faithful, little faith, big faith, we can have support, we don't have support, we can just keep our eye on God and ask for His help. And the last verse, which is, I actually send it to my kids, they are sick of it. Because we suffer, we struggle. I remind myself, in every day, it doesn't have to be the mental health difficulty. In every single day, sometimes we feel belittled by the society, we feel inadequate sometimes. It's okay to feel that, and then we remember that my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. I was coming today to talk young men and women from Brighton who I never met. They don't know who I am. And then on the way I said, gosh, am I going to do anything? And then these verses stepped in my mind. So I hope you will work with it.
What do you do in your day-to-day job as a psychiatrist that Marianne doesn't do or does do as a therapist or counselor? Where is the difference?
This is a very interesting question. So people working in the mental health field are in various kind of positions. So Marianne is a counselor, so she tends to deal with kind of the milder form of presentation, like she said, and counselor in the role give more advice. So that you talk and they tell you what to do. And then you go to therapist, and therapists can be two groups, could be clinical psychologists, clinical psychotherapists, and there are medical psychotherapists. So these people who, and I was trained as a psychotherapist, is to listen and invite you to sort your own problems. So we don't give advice. So these are the therapists. So you are through a very difficult time, or you have a massive psychological issue, and you come and talk, and then you are invited to find out where can you move yourself. So they don't say much. They just get from you what you can do, but it tends to be a lot more complex cases. In my day-to-day life, so I have the training in psychology and in therapy, but my role is a doctor. So they come with a serious condition, with a disorder. So I diagnose the condition. Of course, I listen. I don't talk much. So it's good for me to talk. You don't talk at home either. So, so I don't talk much. I listen. I diagnose the condition. And then I decide what treatment it is. Then I can tell my patient, so I don't say clients. So other professionals would say clients because people are usually still functioning at a better level. They come to me when they're functioning less. So they are patients. So I diagnose the condition, then tell them, is the treatment to talk therapy or medication? And then I monitor that. And then I see, because quite a lot of mental disorder is stemmed from physical problem. So I can say treat the physical condition first. My specialty over the years, I did work with women in the time of pregnancy and after having a child, and this is a very crucial point in the life of society as well, because as the baby was going to be a man or a woman later. And now I'm at the stage of work when people have physical and mental health at the same time, and which is causing which. So this is what I'm doing right now.
Second follow-up question. In your current experience, compared to 10, 15 years ago, or even in Egypt, do you see gender playing a bigger role in mental health? So women are more susceptible to trauma or dealing with traumatic things, and they're more resilient than the men? Or does gender affect the response, the scope of trauma being experienced? Or is it just universal and we all go through it?
So there are conditions that equal men to women, the same. There are conditions that affect men more and conditions affect women more. The difference is men don't like to talk about it, so that we see the traumatized man but doesn't think he's traumatized. It doesn't mean that because women are doing better, because talking and talking and talking is not helping. It's like scratching a wound to make it bleed more. But there are conditions connected to the hormones. So like we talk about the puberty affecting young men and young women, the hormonal change, and then condition like the perinatal period, because there is a lot of hormonal change, the menopause, that is now the fashion, everyone is talking about menopause, and the impact of testosterone. We go through fashion. It's media. But the testosterone impact on men now, sometimes all what they need is to have treatment like testosterone, but they never knew. We never knew. So in the answer to your question, gender can affect certain presentation in certain time, but at the end of the day, we're all from the same dust.
Thank you.
Can I just say something? I meant to put it in the middle, which is the language used in every day that make people confused about reality. And the language comes from the social media, which is the use of trauma, of post-traumatic, of my own space, of my own identity in a very confused society. So talking about social media is a totally different thing. You may run a retreat about it, but carefully spoken about, which someone clever brought it earlier on, is gender identity. Am I a man in the body of a man, or a man in the body of a woman, or a woman, all of this confusion. And it comes because the social media glorify it. So people talking about it become like the celebrity, and the government is supporting it. So the devil is in a good action these days. And love is love. No, not love is love. It is not. It's not love is not love. And stuff like that. So they have like a very flashy, beautiful titles that us as psychiatrists know it is more bad. So my suggestion is that how the language is used in the social media isn't what we use, isn't as professional what we use, and isn't what you be careful to repeat. This is my suggestion. So like someone said, I'm traumatized, think if you are really affected, and how much the impact on your life, and how much are you able to deal with it, and have you really lost control of it, and the length of time of suffering. This is the end of it. Thank you very much.